Thank you for the introduction. I usually go through all that ridiculous stuff myself and bore you to tears in the first 5 or so minutes. I do come from law enforcement, so I'm not tech. And to explain that a little bit, if you can't tell from the gray hair, I grew up in a world without cell phones and computers. And as they began to become more and more prevalent, the world began to change. And frankly, if you don't change with it, you get left behind sometimes, right? So as I learned more about tech and the internet and all that, when it was all, how should I put this, originally built, security wasn't thought of. People didn't think about hackers, and they didn't think about firewalls. They didn't think about antivirus and anti-malware. But as things changed and as crime changed with it, security started coming into play. And it's really just a field that just keeps growing and growing and growing. Most of my day-to-day job is responding to breaches and ransomware cases. If you're interested in that field, find me later and ask me about it. If you like sleep, don't get into that field. Because oftentimes and we've gone 72 hours working ransomware cases without sleep. Which isn't really good because you're doing an investigation and yet you're tired. So that's kind of changing a little bit. More and more people are starting to get in the field. However, there is still a need. And there's a shortage really in the workplace for people to do that kind of thing. So let's stop looking at my picture. So anyone know what a vCISO is? Come on, it's up there. Somebody yell it out. Audience interaction. Come on. Go ahead.
I'm going to take a shot in the dark here and say that it's a virtual chief information security officer.
Very good. Thank you. Yes. The CISO has been around for a while, just the regular Chief Information Security Officer. But as businesses change and the landscape changes, more and more companies are saying, we're just going to hire in a third party to help. And that's where the vCISO comes into play. It's basically a third party outside consultant who can come in and provide assistance where you need it. We'll see a couple of examples of that as we go through this. Hopefully to help you better protect your data and your information. Because what's on your computer?
Data and information.
And? Personal stuff. Lots of personal stuff. How many of you have ever been the victim of a breach? Gotten that letter in the mail? Yeah.
I checked myself on Have I Been Pwned a few times.
Yes. Good website. Have I Been Pwned? That way you can see if your email's floating around out there in one of these many breach cases. I've gotten 3 in the last 6 months. 3 letters, your information has possibly been breached. What do you do with those, by the way? Just curious. What do you do?
Lock your credit.
Lock your credit?
Usually you start by changing passwords.
Change passwords. Very good.
Recently there was some kind of healthcare data breach that I got a full letter and stuff for.
Mm-hmm.
And they paid for like a year of credit monitoring service, so I signed up for that as well.
Yep. Got to watch credit. How many of you check your bank records routinely? Daily. Yes. You have to today. That didn't move, did it? Okay. I don't know. The clicker is a little touchy. We were playing with it earlier, so I don't want to jump too far ahead. But if you're interested in getting into vCISO or hiring a vCISO for a company that you work for, it's not just, this isn't a sales pitch just for Blue Bastion, believe you me. There's a lot of companies doing this kind of work. And it's worth exploring to see where you need the help and who can get you the best help. How many of you have a business? Is it regulated? Governed? Do you have inspectors come in? Oh, many do. And the federal government is starting to take more and more of a hands-on approach to it, where a vCISO might be able to help you, where you might not have the inside expertise to do what everyone's telling you to do. And there's a lot of, what do you say, organizations that are springing up saying this is what you have to do. How many of you have ever worked with cyber insurance? Enjoy that process? Nobody said yes. Okay, so that means I can speak openly. Cyber insurance is getting more and more restrictive too, because I forget what the number is now. It's in the billions of costs that ransomware has caused. Not only from people paying the ransomware actors, the threat actors, but just recovery. Getting your systems back up and running. Paying your people overtime because they're working overtime. There was a breach here not too long ago. Small business. Well, they're not small. Maybe mid-size. I'm not going to name them, but they're local. And they lost everything. All their business records, business transactions gone, just ransomwared into oblivion. And I came in to help with the recovery process. And I'm just one guy. What was neat about that business was all the employees were coming in to help on their own time. So we had to restore 150 computers from scratch. And people were coming in on Saturday to help set those systems back up and get everything back up and running. That was impressive, to be honest, because usually you don't see that kind of thing. And again, okay. So the question really becomes, do you need a vCISO in your business? And that requires you to do a little examination of your business and what's going on there, to see if it's going to save you money rather than hiring your own CISO. CISOs make anywhere between $100,000 to $200,000 a year internal payment. So you youngsters in the room, just saying, that's pretty good payout, right? It can also enhance your security program if you get the right team. Our team at Blue Bastion right now consists of us, which we're called the Blue Team. Everyone know what a Blue Team is? I don't want to bore you to death. Blue Team does protective work, plus the Red Team, which is our penetration testers. They're the hackers that break in to your network that we try to stop. So we work together on this jointly so you get both sides of the fence, so to speak. So you get both protection, you also get good offensive security, which is what they call themselves, to help out. I would caution you to be careful here. You've got to do a little checking to make sure that the people you're going to hire have the qualifications, the knowledge that you're going to need. Anyone here from a bank? Nobody's from a bank. Wow. Oh, sorry. You work at a bank.
Yeah.
So you're governed.
What's that?
You're governed
Yes, absolutely.
by, I'm going to put you on the spot.
The
FDIC.
FDIC.
Yeah, that's one.
And the
SOX,
Credit union's a little different.
credit union, they have the NCUA.
Yeah,
Yep. So you've got these organizations that kind of sit at the top of the food chain and then dictate down to you. I've been through credit union audits for cybersecurity. Not pleasant. Not pleasant at all. Well, actually it was for us because we actually were doing the job we were supposed to do. But if an auditor ever comes in and audits your program, your cybersecurity program, you could get financial costs. HIPAA, anyone here from a hospital or a doctor? HIPAA is really great to work with. Yeah. HIPAA violations, 1.5 million, roughly, per patient record that gets lost. I go to businesses all the time and I just have to chuckle to myself because the one I went to not long ago, They have one of those little Rolodexes on the thing that holds pens and paper clips. On that Rolodex was the password for the admin account. And I'm just like, and they store my PII and my HIPAA information on the network. So I did say, who's the office manager? I'd like to talk to them just briefly, just let's change something here, which is part of what a vCISO does when they're out there moving around in the environment. So what to look for? Well, somebody that knows cyber defense. I mean, we throw the word cyber around. Can somebody give me a definition of what cyber is? Go ahead. Online? Anyone else?
Networked environments.
Networked environments. I mean, that goes with online, but now that hackers are getting so good at their job, there's some things being air-gapped, but hackers are still getting in, even though it's air-gapped and separated from the network. Anyone else? Cyber?
That goes as far as to include anything with like a processor or microcontroller. Like if electricity flows through it and it can perform even a basic mathematical operation, it's computer, it's cyber.
You can consider it to be cyber, yeah. I mean, we throw the word around all the time. When I use it technically, well, not technically, but usually I'm referring to security. But it's more than just security. And that's where the vCISO program comes in, because they're going to take a holistic approach and look at your entire network, look at your personnel and people. Part of the process that we go through, we do 4 interviews with a company that brings us in. And we always talk to the executive management. That's one of the first interviews we do, because if the executive management isn't buying in to your cybersecurity program, you've got a problem, because they're not going to hire people. They're not going to put the tools in place. Or if they do, it's going to be duct taped onto the system and not work the way that it should. So when you're looking for a vCISO, you want to look for those cyber defense operations where they can hopefully help point you in the right direction. So a SOC, for example, Security Operations Center. We have a SOC where I work, and we have analysts that work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Of course, they rotate. They aren't all sitting there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but we monitor those networks round the clock, year in, year out. And that's part of getting a good vCISO, is getting someone that can either refer you to a good SOC or is part of a good SOC, so that they can give you a little direction there. I've got to point this in just the right direction. Risk and compliance is a big one. We use NIST. How many of you have heard of NIST? Okay. We use a couple of other ones. We've done SOCs before. For banks and financial institutions. We use a online program called Aptega. If you've never heard of that, it gives us a whole list of different compliance protocols that we can choose from, and then build out and design a program for SOCs or HIPAA or CIS. How many of you have heard of CIS? It's a really popular one, Center for Internet Security. We've done a lot of those. And what we end up doing as vCISOs is, during that interview process, we stress the fact that these controls are what needs to be in place. And then when we look, we ask if they're there. And if they're not, we circle back around. What's great about being somebody outside the company is you can say things that people inside the company can't say, because you're the third-party provider. So when we write up our end report and we say, your firewall rules need updated, you need to hire a couple more people onto the team, you need to do security training with your employees, is big, huge. Now, a lot of companies do that. I even have to go through it every year with my company. How many of you have heard of Know Before? A lot of people use Know Before. Did anyone hear what happened to Know Before this year? What was it?
North Korean impersonator impersonating an employer, but they didn't breach any of their information. So they sent them a laptop and some malicious activity was happening. They picked up on it and shut it down.
Yep. Went on LinkedIn, created a fake profile, put it in an application with Know Before, went through the interview process, got hired. Know Before sends them out a computer so they can work from home, and Know Before is watching the network, which they should be doing, and they're like, wait a second, what's this? And immediately shut it down and I guess released, fired, let go the North Korean hacker. We had somebody do that to us not long ago going through the interview process. They were Russian though. And one of the guys on our team is from the Ukraine. And as we were going through the interview process, we're messaging each other behind the scenes, and he was like, stop talking about anything having to do with our internal network. And me and my other guy doing the interview were like, what are you talking about? And he's like, this guy's not legit. There's something not right here. His accent is completely off. He's not from where he says he is. And so we shut that down, but they're trying. And they'll put in applications, they'll try to get inside the network, all kinds of things. So when we go through that interview process, that's one of the trainings that we hope to find is that the employers are using good training techniques. Like the one we go through at work, probably shouldn't say this out loud, but I work security. And I've seen the same training being used for other people, and then you're left thinking, maybe we need to up our game a little bit in training our employees because things are changing. It's more than just clicking a link in your email now that they're using to get in. There are other things that are happening that unfortunately a lot of your standard training programs don't do. So vCISO can help with that, plus help guide you through that risk and compliance aspect that you're looking at. And I jumped ahead, but oh well. There's security and training. Be secure, be prepared. We do the security testing, offensive security, training programs. We go on site a lot of times and do it in person. Personally, that's my favorite. I don't like the online click, 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 and then you get to the end and they give you 5 questions at the end, and then you get a pass or you get a fail. Some companies actually have really taken that seriously, and now they'll do a phishing test, and if you report it, you get a reward. It used to be the wall of shame. That's what we always called it. So if you got a phishing email and you clicked the link and downloaded the malware or whatever it was, your name got put on the wall. I think HIPAA still has that, actually. If you go on the HIPAA website, you can find out which doctors' offices and all that have been breached and what their fines were. So that's the wall of shame. They do it in DEF CON too. Anyone here ever been to DEF CON? You got to go?
I'd love to go.
Yeah, love to go. It's a fun time. Don't take your cell phone.
Yeah.
Don't take a laptop. Just warning you beforehand, because one year I was out there for it, and they actually put up a fake cell phone tower when I was there.
Don't they have like a competition every year? It's like if you win a MacBook, or if you hack a MacBook, you win it.
Yeah, they do a couple contests
Yeah.
like that. They do door locks, breaking in through door locks, that kind of thing. Lock picking, that's all fun. But having that in place, your vCISO then can help either craft one or point you to one that is going to help enhance your security network. And make sure your IT, your architecture is all secure. Remember, cyber, online, your network, all of that comes together. And you need a holistic approach. That's why the CISO position was created. And now, of course, the CISO, to give you that little extra added bonus where you might need the protection. A couple of the ones that we've done have been enlightening. because some of these companies that we do work for, we went into the interview process and were just stunned because the executive management was 100% on board and was actually pushing the program. It wasn't the cybersecurity people they hired, it was the executive level going, let's go, let's push this through. A couple other ones that we've been involved in, not so much. Trying to get them on the phone was actually painful because they just didn't want to get on the phone call. The one time we found out they were out golfing when we'd set the phone call up, and the golf date came after we set the phone call up. So we were all on the phone waiting, and they were all out golfing. Sad to say. But that IT and architecture is important to make sure that it's set up properly, to make sure all of your firewall rules are right. Something that a vCISO can help with, review them. Making sure that your malware is updated, your anti-malware and antivirus is updated, not your malware, but your anti. And also with that training functionality. This is what you need. Ask yourself, do you need cybersecurity? Raise your hand if you don't think you need cybersecurity. Is that a trick question? Shouldn't be. Oftentimes though, a lot of people just don't see it as a need, don't see it as necessary. And a vCISO can help push that program along a little bit for you if you need that third party saying, here's what we need to do. How many of you have ever spoken to a board of directors? Fun, isn't it? No? Yeah, I get a couple of those. Board of directors needs to be on board with it, not just your executive management. And a lot of times, board of directors aren't very security savvy, and they can learn from it not just business, but how to protect themselves at home. Now, when COVID came in, what happened to everybody? Everyone went remote. Went remote. Your home network safe and secure? Who's your neighbor? Who's your neighbor? Don't yell it out. Who's your neighbor? What do they do? Any of you ever go home and get this thing out, stand on your front porch and scan for Wi-Fi signals in the neighborhood? I can see almost all the neighbors on my cell phone. Their Wi-Fi signals just blasting out there. Nobody pays attention to that, right? Until somebody tries to hack it. How many of you set your own Wi-Fi password? You didn't leave the one the company put on it in place?
Everybody gets so mad at me because it's 24 characters long. Because it hasn't, I don't think that's been cracked yet.
I doubt it. That would take quite some time.
WPA2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, yeah, our router, we use the stock password, but it's such a mix of random characters, words, letters, numbers,
It's hard to,
and then you have the WPA to encrypt.
yep, which helps, yep. Just asking that because we all went remote. I still work remote. My home office is in Pittsburgh, but I work here in Cumberland. And everybody went remote. I was getting my hair cut not long ago, and one of the barber's neighbor was trying to hack their home network because they were working from home, part-time job, doing financial transactions for a company late at night. Get done cutting hair during the day, go home at night, log in, work from home. It even got so bad that the neighbor would come over and knock on the door and be like, hey, I got this USB, could you plug that in for me? And I was like, have you contacted the company about this? Well, they said, don't worry about it. Well, if your neighbor's trying to hack you, eventually you're going to get hacked. That's one of the things with a penetration test. Everyone knows what those are. Where our good people break into other good people's networks to help them secure that network. 2 weeks. Usually, that's what the contract's for. Get 2 weeks to try to crack into the network. How long's a hacker got? long as they want. Long as they've got Doritos and Red Bull, they are good to go. So everyone needs cybersecurity, even at home, whether you work from home or not. I mean, who does their banking from a computer? Everyone almost. Everyone. My wife does. And I laugh because she's like getting ready to put her password in. She's like, turn around. I'm like, that computer sits here all day long. You don't think I can get your password? Plus, she keeps her passwords in a notebook in the top desk drawer. But she makes me turn around, just, I guess, out of habit. But, password security is important. If you have a need for certification from a third party, that's a good way for a vCISO to help you out and work with that third party. We've worked with cyber insurance companies before. We'll probably do so again. They can be both good and bad, as we said earlier. Reviewing all of that is important to see what's in your cyber insurance policy to make sure you're covered. Let me think how to ask that question. Would you pay a ransom if you got ransomware? Who says no? Put your hands up. Okay. Who says yes?
It depends.
It depends.
It's
I didn't get there yet.
You have to have your safeguards in place. You have to be practicing good security in general.
Before you make that determination. Plus, the federal government has now named some of those cyber threat actors as terrorist organizations. And if you pay them, you're in trouble because now you're funding terrorism. And believe you me, they'll come get you. They'll show up quicker for that than a barking dog or a parking violation, but they'll be there. So it helps to have somebody that can guide you through that process, especially if that government agency is regulating you, like CIS or SOX or HIPAA. vCISO can step in and help you get through that process a little easier. Here's some of the questions that we ask during the interview process. Inventory, control of enterprise assets. How many of you know how many computers are on your network at work? That kind of thing. Do you have 100? Do you have 150? Are there ghost machines floating around out there somewhere that just kind of show up and then go away? What firewalls do you have? Software is a big one. What kind of software is in your environment? Do you control what your employees put on their computers? Or is it the wild, wild west out there? Because you can download all kinds of stuff, right? How many of the apps on Google Play are malicious? Lots of them, because they don't check them. Account management, who is on the network, who has access to the network, access control. How many of you remember the Target breach? I forget how long ago that was. Do you remember how they got in?
Yeah, plumbing company or HVAC.
Yep,
They
HVAC.
pivoted off the HVAC. Yeah.
Hacked the HVAC,
They pivoted there.
found Target's access information, and went strolling into Target.
We're doing it
So,
for months.
who has access to your network? Especially if it's a business. You got to be careful with that kind of thing. Vulnerability management is becoming even bigger and bigger. There's all kinds of vulnerabilities constantly being found. Firewalls are constantly getting pinged with them. Systems, email, web browser protections, malware defenses, data recovery. Has anyone gone through that one yet? Recovering all of your data after an attack?
Attack after a crash.
A crash. That's good practice.
Yeah.
Yep.
I had to
That's,
try and get some photos on the hard drive after reinstalling the OS. The OS was so corrupt.
from an attack or just the OS went bad?
It was a new computer repair. It was for a customer's like older iMac.
Okay.
And I don't know what happened beforehand, but like enough of the OS was missing that the system was just bugging out.
Yeah, wouldn't work.
Yeah.
I've lost whole computers to that. OS just went, yeah, I'm done. How do you get your data back?
Yeah, I expect that from Windows, not Mac OS.
Yeah, mine was Windows, unfortunately. I still use Windows. I do have a Mac though, which I do like. But recovering data, I have worked with some small credit unions. And as we work through these processes, we begin to find out they don't have data recovery in place. So you need to get that built in because that's extremely important to have. Because if your entire system goes down, you're going to lose way too much information. Security awareness, skills training, we've hit it. Service provider management, and then incident response management. That's a big one for me because I do incident response, and it's ignored until it happens, until that big red panic button gets pushed, and they go, oh no, something bad happened, push the big red button. So we like to go over incident response plans and processes. How many of you have been through tabletop exercises? Pretty good. We do those routinely with companies to walk through their incident response process and find any holes or anything that could be wrong in there to help them get it repaired and up to par. Are there benefits? Some people say no, some people say yes. Like I said earlier, it is growing. So more and more companies are starting to tend toward, we're going to hire a virtual CISO instead of our own internal CISO. Even if you do that though, you need an internal contact. Somebody that this vCISO can work with and through to handle things internally. If you're young and interested in the field, don't neglect your personal skills. You need to be able to talk to people at all different levels. Like he was saying in the earlier presentation. You've got typical employees, let's say warehouse worker, and this is a true story. I was doing training at a company, and one guy, roughly my age, comes up to me. I say roughly my age. Comes up to me and he's like, why do I got to be here? I'm like, well, because everybody's working on computers, so, you know, it's helpful. He's like, I don't even have a cell phone. Now, how many people in your life have you met that did not have a cell phone? He was from up in the mountains, up in Garrett County.
Hey, now watch it.
Hey, I love Garrett County. But yeah, he didn't even have a cell phone and didn't see the need for the training. So we walked back and, you know, me and the guy I was working with and said, show us your workplace. Well, there's a computer. Right there's why you need training, because you use this here. Whether you have one at home or not, doesn't matter. You use it here. That's why you need training. He said, yeah, I get it. And so he, you know, went through the training, but I always found it interesting that there's that one guy out there who doesn't have a cell phone to this day. I always threaten my wife with that. When I retire finally, when I'm probably be like 87, 88 years old when that happens. Moment of silence for that. I'm getting rid of my cell phone. It's gone. I'm going to get one of those old flip phones. That's what I'm going to have so she can get hold of me. The work of a vCISO could be used to build out an in-house security program. We've done that, helped. We've written up job descriptions, helped with an interview process, crafted questions for the interviewees for different security type positions so they can help there. And then update your current cybersecurity programs, policies, and protocols. Now, you know, nobody likes writing policy. Do you? Does anyone here like writing policy? I can't really right now because that finger. Like, I took typing in school because we still had typewriters. You know, those old models where you chink, 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 and then zing. Now I'm trained to do this, but now I can't do this. So this finger's like doing the one finger tap, and this one's going to town, and this is getting really tiresome. I can't even type what I'm supposed to type. But writing up policy and protocols is very important because when cyber insurance comes in, what's one of the first things they're going to ask for? Let's see your information security policy. Let's see your incident response policy. Let's see your network diagram. Still can't believe how many companies still don't even have a network diagram that we talk to. And then your protocols on how to get through the entire process. A lot of people will have policies. We've gone in a couple different places. And I'm just going to tell you this straight up. It's not enough to download a blank policy from the internet. That's not going to help you. It needs to be drafted and written to your specific environment and your team so that it's applicable. We've asked, every time we come into one of these, one of our first questions is please share with us your documentation. And there's been like quiet chuckles on the other end. There's been silence of consternation on the other end. And they're like, well, we just downloaded them from Google. Send them over anyway so we can take a look at them. And then we have to go through the whole process of getting it written up. And during that interview process, it gets technical, because we ask what kind of firewalls are you running, what kind of systems are you in your environment, and we dig our way down that way. So when we start writing out these programs and the policies, we want them to be yours. And we always take them to an executive level person for signature because that's that buy-in. CISOs have had a rough time of it lately. All the breaches that have been happening. And accountability always rolls downhill. So it's not the CEO who's going to get in trouble. It's the CIO or the CISO or some poor SOC worker who hit ignore on an alert that should have been investigated. And we did, unfortunately, have one of those not too long ago. Not us, but we helped do the incident response for it. And the alert came through. It pinged on malware. And the SOC analyst was, I guess, tired that night or whatever and just went, that's nothing, and hit close. 2 days later, they're off to the races. Ransomware was everywhere. And we ended up tracking it back. That's my part of my digital forensic side of the house is we do the forensic investigation and see if we can figure out where. And that's where vCISO comes into play too. In incident response, a lot of times that aspect just gets ignored. They restore everything back up and then they go, all done. Guess what they didn't close? The door that the attacker came in. And then 3 days later, the attacker's back in and everyone's going, how did that happen? You didn't do an investigation. Didn't do a follow-up on it. Didn't make sure it was all sealed up and closed back down again. And vCISO can help with that, both working with your insurance company and also helping you do that investigation. Who needs them? Startup businesses could use one. Super important. A lot of small businesses don't have the money to hire somebody inside, and vCISO can help with that. Businesses without a CISO can use one temporarily until they can get the spot filled or just stay with it permanently. And anybody who is under pressure for compliance or insurance can use a vCISO to help fill in the gaps that they need. Many businesses, especially small businesses, don't have that strategic vision, which a vCISO brings in with them when they come in to help you plan that all out. If you don't have a strategic plan for cybersecurity, you're just helping the attackers, really, in the end. Anyone know who that is, by the way? Very nice. I like to throw a historical figure in every now and then just to see who knows who they are. I had one of Greek philosophers one time, and everybody said it was Jesus. Like, no, it's Aristotle. It's because he's wearing a robe. I mean, come on. I did that one. When it comes to incident response and vCISO stuff, tech alone doesn't make it. I already talked about that. You want somebody who can think outside the corporate box. You also need someone who can communicate with different levels of people. And again, I'm going to stress that one. Because unfortunately, a lot of times people ignore the personal side and don't think about, well, I've got to get up in front of the board and talk about this. And you might be able to write code, you might be able to program, but you got to be able to talk to other people too and communicate with them. Burnout's really real. Like I said, working 72 hours on an incident will burn you out pretty quick. Excuse me. I actually did 2 incident responses in the past. One died in their car in the parking lot of a heart attack, and the other one killed themselves. The CISOs of the company. And we all got on the call and found that out in the middle of an incident. That's rough. And it's really hard to recover from for a company. But you don't want people burning out. You want to make sure you got all the help you can get. There's just some examples of different compliance groups: NIST, HIPAA, COBIT, SOC, SOC 2. We're going to jump through this to the end and see if you have any questions. Yes?
What are some things to look for or questions to ask to find a better virtual assistant?
A better one. Always ask if it's inclusive of both red and blue teams, because that way you get both sides of the fence. Always check certifications. Do they have the right certifications? Now, the one I skipped over, how many of you have heard of SANS? Does training, cybersecurity training. They've got a new vCISO course they just put out. A couple other companies are now putting out vCISO training. So you'd want to look for that kind of training to make sure that whoever's going to be helping you really knows what they're talking about. Yes?
Yes, I have a question. When I was going for my software engineering certificate, my friend wanted to do cybersecurity, and I told him that it's a good field to go. But then I talked with a retired teacher, computer science, who told me that eventually cybersecurity will be replaced by AI. So, did I mislead my friend, or?
They've actually tested AI for incident response, digital forensics, that kind of thing, and it failed. Doesn't have the human element yet. Hopefully it never will. But they've tried it and it came up short. AI did. So not yet. Maybe a ways down the road, but right now, and once you get into the field, you can go out in different directions too. You don't have to just do SOC work or something like that. So, yes?
How far should a red team go? Because when I first started, I took a few classes in high school. We were supposed to get into cyber ops right before COVID hit, so that sort of got derailed. But they showed us a video where the red team went as far as to physically attempt to breach the premises.
Yep.
So is that something that your company does as well, where you'll actually go in pretending to be?
We'll try to piggyback in. Follow a worker in that has the access card. Just, oh, hey, how are you today, Joe? Yeah, I forgot my card today. Mind letting me in? See if they'll let us in. Because that's all part of security. Some of the people that I work with are quite scary, actually, when it comes to breaking and entering. And they will break and enter if need be. But that's all governed by the statement of work.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's not in the statement of work and you get caught,
then it's a problem.
bye.
Yeah.
And there have been pen testers get arrested.
But at the same time, if somebody were to come to you and say, I want you guys to physically try and break and enter into the property, you guys would be capable of doing such a thing.
Oh yeah. Like I said, some of them scary.
So, 'cause it's one thing, it's one thing to have your network locked down, secured, and all your devices secured through a network connection.
Mm-hmm.
But if all that gets rendered moot, if somebody can just waltz on in through the front door
And access it. Yep. Do you have one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was the absolute worst, local data breach you've seen?
in Allegheny County. I'll go with that.
Absolute worst data breach in Allegheny County. Ooh. Ooh. It would probably, well, there's two. I'll give you two real quick. One was pre-computer times. Doctor's office closed here locally. Doctor died. Office shut down. Somebody broke in and stole a whole bunch of patient records. Dropped them off on some anonymous guy's porch. And there's just 3 boxes. I found my sister-in-law in there with, shall we say, compromising pictures. All their personal information was listed out. There were 400 in that people. Another one would be ransomware case. And unfortunately, a lot of times businesses are getting hit with this and they're not reporting it. They're just going, okay, just restore from backup and let's just recover and not think about it anymore. So one local business, while I was helping another company here locally, was hit at the same time by the same exact ransomware actors. And they didn't report it. I didn't find out till 2 weeks later. But they lost, I forget how much, in recovery process. Plus, I think their data backup was only good for 30 days. And almost lost it all. So, one more real quick.
All right, so you have security goals, and then you also have like the business goals.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, business wants to drag their feet in implementing security because they're worried about that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I understand that you guys fill in the role of like a CISO, but do you guys assist like current CISOs in the regard where, say, they don't have enough personnel to implement the security to kind of force business to accept the reality of
Yes.
implementing?
Yeah, we do. Yep, that's part of our process, is to get that moving, especially if, like you said, their business goals are ignoring the security goals, and we kind of force that issue, which it's easier for us to do, especially once they sign that contract, because there's no getting out of that. And then we really can jump in and help.